Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Human-Centered Design UAE meetup. My name is Jonathan Steingisser. I'm head of design at Property Finder. And we've got a great meetup tonight with four excellent panelists. We're going to be talking about the design candidate's journey and understanding the UAE job market from various perspectives. So should be very interesting, something I've wanted to run in a meetup for a while. The session is being recorded in case you have to run off or if you couldn't make it for any reason. You can find all of our meetups since COVID has happened on YouTube. And this is where the session should be, hopefully tonight, if not early tomorrow morning. Human-Centered Design, United Arab Emirates. If you just search for that, you should be able to find it quite easily. So a big thanks to the HCD UAE team. Besides myself, behind the scenes, we've got Katral Nada, who is going to be helping out with moderating some of the questions tonight, as well as Greta, who's on the line. Thanks, Greta. And Assad, who also helps us out with social media and marketing. So thanks to all of you. This all wouldn't be possible without the team. We're also on the social, so you can tag us. We're not as active on all the channels. I think predominantly we've been focusing lately on LinkedIn, but if you're on the other socials, we are making an effort for next year to have a few dedicated co-organizers running some of the other socials. So you can, whatever tickles you fancy, you can tag us on there. So I just wanted to introduce our panelists. We've got representing the candidate, so someone looking for a design job, Honey James. She's a multi-talented designer with a strong passion for bringing colors and fun to society. She enjoys being a kid again and trying to see the world from a different perspective. Everything around us is design, someone's imagination and creation with a story behind. She looks at the world with her favorite words, why not, and explore. So welcome, Honey. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Representing the hiring managers, we've got Lena.
Hello.
She's an experienced insight and data-driven product designer and management professional with over 10 years of experience in tech, finance and banking, e-commerce and telco. She's built a high-performing team, many teams and processes to deliver high-quality products and services globally. She spent almost 3 years in the UAE and led design teams at Careem and Kafou. And before moving to the UAE, she co-founded a creative collaboration platform in London, UK for VFX, film and games. Lena holds a degree in computer science from the University of Reading in the UK and a master's in interactive technology from Tampere, hopefully I pronounced it right, University.
That's enough.
In Finland. Welcome, Lena. Great to have you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jonathan.
We've also got Guilherme representing the hiring managers, otherwise known in Gil or Gil. He's a customer-led designer with more than 12 years of experience in a variety of industries. He started working with UX back in Brazil at HP when he was part of the R&D team for Walmart digital products. In 2012, he moved to the UAE, and since then he has participated in a lot of relevant projects, such as the second generation of smart gates for Dubai airports, as well as the digital transformation initiative at Etisalat. This particular project gave Etisalat the award for the most valuable brand in 2017. Today, Gil focuses his time on customer experience and service design activities for Payit Wallet, the UAE's first fully featured digital wallet by FAB, which is a bank for those of you who are not in the UAE, first Abu Dhabi bank. Welcome, Gil.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thanks for great to participate in one more, and then really glad to see the community growing more and more. Really good to be here.
Great to have you. And last but not least, we've got Jessica Roberts representing The Recruiter. She's a recruitment consultant at Salt, specializing in building world-class design teams with some of the best designers globally. She works with UX, UI, CX, product, service designers, right through to brand designers, art directors, and creative directors. She has worked with every level from grad to C-suite. She's grateful to be trusted by incredible companies to attract, source, and retain the best designers. Great to have you. Welcome, Jess.
Thank you, Jonathan. Pleasure to be here amongst some super talented designers.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. Again, if you've just joined, if you can just write where you're from, what you do, where you live, could be different to where you're from. And if you have any questions, then please feel free to ask them in the chat in between the panel. We're going to ask Greta and Nada. I don't see Nada on the call, so maybe we'll get Greta to just help out with looking through. And if there's any, some questions, we'll be able to have some time for those too. So feel free to put your questions in the chat and Greta will ask on your behalf. Oop, went too far. So we'll kick things off. I'm just gonna stop sharing with looking at the hiring managers initially. Lena, this question is for you. Just to start off with, can you tell us a little bit about the current experience you have of or have had in your last few roles? You've worked at some very big brands in the region of hiring talent, like from the beginning of the process. What's that experience been like for you, Lena?
Yeah, thank you. So, of course, firstly, I want to make a small correction in the introduction. So I'm not such as namely a product designer. I've always been more looking after product design teams, but my core expertise has always been in kind of user experience and user research aspect, processes and improving practice and so on. So yes, so to the question from that viewpoint, yes, having worked at Careem originally, actually Careem brought me to the region. And there was, when I arrived here about 3 years ago, Careem actually had already quite a decent size product design team. However, in Careem's kind of sense, it was slightly more advanced team, I would say, that I had heard in the region, was that they had already mixed different types of design expertise within their team. They weren't only UX and UI designers, they had UX writers such as Greta, ex-Careem, and they had user researchers as well. So my role at Careem was to mainly source user research and later then trying to find service designers and some product designers. So the experience from there was that talent locally 3 years ago and up to about a year ago, it was very, very hard. Because we were already kind of high growth company, high growth startup, it meant that we needed to really bring world-class talent. And this is not to anyhow belittle the region or anything like that. We needed very senior level designers to join and any design experts. So number one, it required from our talent acquisition team significant efforts. And of course, it meant that we who were then part of the hiring, we had to do a lot of research and networking and connecting ourselves. And not only that, but convincing the candidates across the globe to come. So because people, something like user research or even like very senior product designers, especially looking at from more advanced kind of process viewpoint or design thinking viewpoint, actually people from this region, we're a little bit more ahead of the game. I can see that in past 3 years, it has accelerated here in Dubai as well. I don't know if Jonathan, you would agree. But experience was that, yes, we had to do a lot of hands-on work as the hiring managers and team members to actually educate our organization at the same time as actually trying to find this talent. And yes, sorry, did I kind of answer partially your
that's
question?
okay. Yeah, definitely. And so you're saying you've definitely noticed things improve over time. Gil, like you've been
Absolutely.
here probably, I think, one of the longest in the panel. I met Gil when I just joined, and he was telling me this was in 2013. At the time, there were not many, if any, dedicated researchers within design teams. And I'm interested in your perspective over time to not only, I guess, attract talent, but what's your experience been like? Where have been the challenges, and where have been maybe some of the successes as well over time in hiring designers?
Yeah, so I think with the teams that I've worked with, I started to see user testing research 2016, but this is my experience, like working with other organizations. And then, so when I joined on the Tissalats, there was a team dedicated to do the whole process, like visual design, research, whatever it is. And I was very focused on the ops of user experience, right? So that was because the top management understood and they were building a team to do all these things, right? It could be earlier, but there was no one that I knew at that time. And I came to Dubai hired as an information architect. So imagine that. And then some of my friends that saw the title said, "Oh, so you do architecture, you can design some stuff," because there's a house and they want to do some stuff over there. So no, it's not this type of an architect. It's a different story. So yeah, progressing, and then the UX started to kick in, but it was always in a software house. And then to inject user research and convincing, it was so much of a legacy to change that it was always easy to do a fail fast, do a design and then change and then try to squeeze into development so you can kind of progress the design. So there wasn't sort of research. And then yes, and later on, yes, we've got to work closer with product owners, and they want to understand. Is like, yeah, well, I'm thinking about this, but then you gave me that, and then after the research, so it was increasing, but it took some time for me and to see this happening on the in Dubai.
Okay, and Hani, over to you. We've kind of started quite generally, and we'll dig in a little bit deeper. But how long have you been working or looking for work in Dubai, Hani?
So like, first of all, thank you for inviting me for this, like me being a very small junior, but still. So I came to Dubai last year in August. So like I completed my integrated lifestyle and product design last year around February. And basically I'll just start off from where like I began. So like in India, like once you have completed a design course, you are mostly like gonna jump into Bangalore, which is like mostly like the design hub, one among the design hubs in India. So I had a lot of ideas about Dubai at that time, like the expo was coming and a lot of other information, the exciting opportunities here. So I thought I'll just start off with another place rather than going into my comfort zone, which is Bangalore. So I came to Dubai, where I have lots of other friends as well here. So I came here and I joined into a package design job right away because honestly, I would say anyone who is coming here, we are thinking about right away grabbing an opportunity and then search for what you want. That was my approach at that time. So I got into a package design job at that time, and I was working till recently, till around August, July this year. But I was exploring, I was joining into communities like Design UAE, where Jonathan found me actually. So communities, UX communities there, and following people who are actually doing UX work. And recently I started to strongly look for UX opportunities because I feel that that is where actually right now where my heart lies. So that is how the story is here at the moment. So yeah.
Okay. And what was the trigger like for coming to Dubai? Like what I guess more broadly, like why do designers from India? I know that like there's a lot of designers from India. Why do they want to come to Dubai?
My trigger personally was actually honestly last year's expo. I mean, last year we had this thing that Expo 2020 is coming, and there will be lots of things, and also the huge publicity given for Design District. So it was like designing. I mean, Dubai is becoming like a design hub. There will be so many opportunities in that regards. And when we even try, and there is actually, I am from the state Kerala in India. There's a lot of Keralites. I'm pretty sure there's so many people in this group also who is from Kerala. So there's a lot of graphic design opportunities in Dubai. It was there previously also when we were looking at it. So they were like that. Mainly, most of the designers who come from India is to these fields, probably like graphic design and marketing and such fields. So I came into another reason, but most of the designers who come from India is for the graphic design and such fields actually. So the trigger is basically an international market because Dubai is like a hub for all the people like from different nationalities. You get a little more exposure. Like I came, that was one reason I came here. Like in rather than being in India, you can have and interact and work with people from so many different nationalities from Australia, America, like so many places. So, and in coming to Dubai is actually the most easiest comparing to going to other like going abroad like US or somewhere like that. So most of the people come here mainly. That is the reason. That is one big reason actually.
Okay, great. And Jess, can you tell us a little bit about the start of the journey? So I kind of wanted to start a bit broadly, but the start of that journey
Yeah.
in terms of the local talent or the local design pool, if you will, versus sourcing talent externally. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, over to
Right.
you.
So
Sorry, honey. Over to
yeah.
Jessica. Um, from a recruiter perspective, do you do both? Have things changed since the pandemic? Can you just tell us a little bit about the start of that journey in sourcing talent?
Yeah, so everybody knows, the pandemic hit everybody hard. And a lot of companies I have found use the pandemic as an excuse to, not as an excuse, but as an opportunity to let go of a lot of people. There are unfortunately a lot of, not just designers, there are a lot of people, within the tech world and other industries that are, of course, jobless and here at the minute. So the pool at the minute is very, very large. I am a headhunter. So for the most part of my role, what I will do is I'll speak to a client, I'll find what they want, and then I'll go out and I'll headhunt somebody who does a similar role already, right? But at the minute, there are a lot of people that are, immediately available. It's a very competitive market at the minute. As I'm sure you're aware, honey, we've been here for a little while now. There's a lot of people. There are a lot of very, very talented people that are unfortunately out of roles as well, just because certain industries have been hit hard, right? But yeah, for the most part, pre-March, I'd say that 9 out of 10 roles I would have to headhunt for people. I'd have to pull them out of one job and place them into another job. However, I'd probably say that maybe half of the roles that I fill now are people that are immediately available, the people that are out there actively looking for roles. And I'd say that there's still a lot of people available on the market that are very, very good at what they do. We're just, of course, struggling a little bit. However, on a positive note, just to put it into context a little bit more. So back in March, I was probably working about 20 active roles. And then within the space of a fortnight, I went down to 0. absolutely nobody was recruiting just because nobody knew, what was going to happen. No one knew what was going to happen in the world, right? So everybody put a halt for 2-3 months minimum. I was kind of panicking for my job as well as everybody else, really. But yeah, on a positive note, I am very, very busy at the minute. There are a lot of companies that are recruiting. I think there are companies out there that, panicked a bit too early, let go of some of their staff, and are now thinking, I really need somebody in that role. So there are a lot of opportunities out there. I think the market has changed. There are a lot of opportunists out there as well with hiring managers, but there's a lot of opportunity out there at the minute. And, hopefully Honey and I can team up as well, and we'll get you into a role ASAP. But yeah, I'm very, very opportunistic about the market at the minute, especially going into the new year. I think that there's a lot of roles out there to be filled.
And are you or your clients still looking overseas, or are you saying the pool is that big domestically that there's less of an inclination than, say, I don't know, before the pandemic?
I would say I'm probably half and half at the minute. Given the pandemic, everybody's now used to having 5 to 10 Zoom meetings a day, right? So a lot of my clients are very happy to onboard people remotely, either with or without the view of relocating somebody. So, every different industry has different opportunities, right? So I have a lot of clients that are open to onboarding people for the talent. And everyone that comes from a different cultural background, of course, comes with different ideas. So I'd say probably at the minute, pre-COVID, it was probably around maybe 80% of my candidates were open to relocating, which is quite high. I'd say probably now around 50%, maybe 1 in 2 clients of mine would be open to relocating people. And I think that that's good. I think that, we're a big expat community over here, right? So I think that it's good that hiring managers are now open to a slightly longer onboarding process with relocating somebody, but that they can get the talent from elsewhere in the world.
Okay, great. And Lena, over to you from a hiring manager perspective, diving a little bit deeper now into the journey. Could you reflect on some of what we've been talking about in terms of the start of your journey of sourcing talent? Like when a role is created, I mean, obviously it could be somebody has left or you've made a case. I think it was interesting. We started off, both you and Gil talked about something that I also battle with, and I'm sure a lot of hiring managers all over the planet, is there's a job to mature design for organizations to be aware that if you have a new initiative, you kind of need a designer and a researcher or a design researcher to explore, and that's a prerequisite before we move in a direction. So there's work to be done in maturing design, but regardless of the source of the new role, can you deep dive a little bit into just the start of that journey? How do you go about creating the role, justifying the role, and then what do you do next? Do you use recruiters? Do you do it yourself? Like, what does that look like from you've worked for some big brands?
Yes, so basically I wouldn't even it's quite similar with the new kind of big brands in the region like Careem, Kafu, Talabat, all of them. I think they all have kind of adopted some of the best design hiring processes in the world from big companies like Uber or other players like that. They can be quite rigorous, but I would say that the key difference is the larger companies versus the very small companies. In the larger companies, my experience being that I've always worked with the talent acquisition, and that's when it comes a little bit tricky. And when we go into larger and larger companies, maybe your application goes through a LinkedIn job post or through a recruiter like Jessica or someone, and they kind of initially arrived to the talent acquisition table. And then we would have agreed that, or I personally, this is my personal experience, I've always been very hands-on as a hiring manager, writing job specs and JDs and filling the gap exactly what needs to be filled in the team. And then work together with the talent acquisition or headhunter to kind of agree what is the ultimate need, so that actually I feel like, because I would have known what is my team's requirement, then I translate this into sensible format with the talent acquisition. They usually go ahead, post it in LinkedIn or whatever. And then usually the 1,500 applications lands into the people or talent teams table, and they would look through the criteria, what we have agreed that would fill. And that sounds probably from this applicant's viewpoint like a needle in a haystack, and it can be. However, the good news in my opinion is that many candidates approach me directly or approached me in my role direct on LinkedIn. And I actually answered to many of them and pushed them into the process because they were so personal. They had learned the company. They understood who I was, what my need might have been. They had done their homework so well that when I received that cold message on LinkedIn, I was like, this person deserves an answer. This person deserves to get on this table. So I would just say is that it can be very daunting, but the smaller companies are probably far more personal, I would say. So if you expect quicker turnaround times, I think that smaller companies can do that for you. And I think there's a lot of opportunity, even the younger juniors probably join the early day startup, like early stage startups and so on, for example. But yeah, that's kind of like in overall how I would have gone about it.
That's great advice. 2 points I just wanted to highlight, and I just wanted to ask you, Gil, if you follow the same practice and if you have similar advice, which were to, and I've had that myself as well, Lena, which is candidates contacting you direct on LinkedIn. It can be overwhelming, as you say, Lena, especially with high volumes and post-COVID, but you can also stand out to a hiring manager as well, especially if you take the time and effort to not just, I think,
Absolutely.
learn about the company, but learn about the role, really read
Exactly.
the job description and relate to it, which
Yes.
few candidates do. It's surprising, right? You think they'd read the job description, especially as a hiring manager, when you put effort into
Yes.
writing a really specific job description. But the other one you mentioned, I think, which is great, was joining not necessarily a huge or a well-known brand, but an early stage startup if you are a junior. And it's not so much about the money, right? It's more about the experience that you're going to get product and tech company and building your portfolio. Gil, would you agree with those points? Is that something you do yourself, or is it, it's okay to say it's too overwhelming, thousands of people, like, please don't reach me on LinkedIn?
Yeah. No, it's hard. It's hard. Yeah, Jonathan. I think for us it was easier. As Lena said, it's a large organization, and you know, a lot of the heavy lifting work is done by our HR along with the agencies or like Jessica supporting. So I mean, there's a little bit of help from there. So I'm never. It will be hard to, yes, if someone does really a good job and find me out there, yes, it really deserves an answer, right? And I think, and this is what we do as CX, right? We really wanted to make sure that it's something that I think for us, especially on the UX, CX, that frustrates us. Like the person needs to know where it is. It needs some status, right? But yeah, I think that that's part of the process, and I'm very into look at the soft skills as well, right? Because I think it's hard, even if you put good effort on the job description and that person goes and you know, it's a relationship. It's like a marriage, right? Imagine if the connection between you and your wife or your husband will be a piece of paper like a CV. Yeah. So it's complicated, right? So you really need to get that grasp and stuff. So yeah, it is definitely a challenge for both sides. You have to express all of your experience in a piece of paper, and you can't use two sometimes and stuff like that, right? For a designer, it's a little easier, we'd say, because you can have a portfolio. But it's again, it's really about the connection that you can build with that person that will be part of your team, and that's crucial, right? So having that conversation. Now we are, because of the pandemic, we are doing this conversation over Zoom, but still there are things that you really can elaborate and try to understand and try to to connect, so that you can really build, because there are other challenges that you can't put on your job description, like pressure, or stuff like that, or like a wrong answer or a timeline. So yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, that's all.
Great. And Jess, what about you? Any tips you have in the early days of we're still at the start of the journey of applying for design roles for candidates, or anyone listening in? I'm sure there are quite a few that are looking and are in the market themselves as we speak.
Yeah, one thing that Lena touched on was when anyone posts a job on LinkedIn, on average, LinkedIn will tell you that there are 250 plus applicants. On average, there are between 1,000 and 2,000 applicants for every single role. And that includes, if I post a UX designer role on LinkedIn, I will get taxi drivers, I will get everybody applying for that role. I'll get all sorts of different candidates. And so I think, it's well known that a recruiter will spend on average 2 seconds looking at a CV. And that is just because, yeah, it's right, isn't it? And that is because of the sheer volume that we get. There are so many. So, as a candidate, what makes you stand out? What makes you special? What makes you good at what you do? And you really need to advertise that. And the main thing that I will say to any designer looking for a role, or not even looking for a role, is update your portfolio. Update your portfolio every time you do something and you're proud of it. Put it on your portfolio. And time is of the essence to hiring managers. Hiring managers are super busy, right? Their day job is not recruitment. And they will, likely, if you've got 3 case studies, I will probably look at the first one. A hiring manager will probably look at the first one. If it's great, we'll look at the rest. If it's not, we're going to move on. We're going to move on to the next candidate. We're going to move on to somebody who has updated their portfolio with something not from 5 years ago, with something from this year or last year, or something that they're super proud of. I think my number one advice to anyone within the design world is your portfolio. Your portfolio is your opportunity to impress somebody, without being able to speak to them, right? Your portfolio is what gets you your interview, and it's what makes a designer special. Like, you don't have anyone else within the tech world, like, a developer can't have a portfolio. It's harder to impress somebody straight away. You have the amazing opportunity to impress somebody within a few seconds with how amazing you are at your portfolio. Advertise straight away, what you're good at, what your specialism is, what you like to do. And I think, that's the number one thing, is advertise what you're good at.
Cool. I just wanted to touch on that. I've actually, I'm sure like many other designers, I mentor when I have a spare moment, which is not often. But one thing, especially with the pandemic, because like a lot, I'm pretty sure everyone on the panel, we all lost some very dear friends, very smart people left our organizations. And one of the things I was advising even non-designers is to create a portfolio. So I just want to disagree with you, Jess, if you don't mind. And I think anyone can create a portfolio regardless of your profession, and not just show whatever the output is, which is the advice I've given Honey, for example, in the past, but show the process of why you did the thing, and how you go about doing what you do, and what was your role and what you were passionate about, and really tell a story. It's about storytelling, right? And even if you don't have much of a portfolio, the advice I always give is to just do some pro bono work for a startup, or create your own startup, not for the sake of the startup being a success, but to have something to put in your portfolio. Honey, anything you wanted to, I think one thing I definitely want to commend you on since we last spoke, because I know it's been a while, I think maybe we spoke in March till recently.
Yeah.
Is I saw your portfolio again, and I was quite impressed that you have put a lot of effort into that storytelling and more, say, product design, because your background, right, is industrial design. Anything, were there other
Right.
tips that other people gave you, other mentors or hiring managers that you put into play that you'd recommend to others?
Actually, I basically, after we had the conversation in March, like I was like, it was the right points, like, you know, what you said, like I didn't have a story in all the projects which I displayed. So if I actually, if you go through my previous one, there's like, it's all images and what the final product was. Probably it was because it is a 99 page of portfolio, which I had put that in issue first. So then I was like, then I got into doing my work, and MBRU hackathon happened in between around like May. So at that time we were working on a mobile app. That was our concept. So I decided that I will make that into my recent work. And just like Jonathan like advised me, I thought I'll write down the whole process of it. Now I really understand that is really important, because then only people will actually understand that what you are actually thinking. I have added like small things where like a little bit small humor or what I was thinking also, so that people get to know that what kind of person I am. Also in that the final one which I have put, which is a Corona app, COVID-19 travel app. And also after getting your and I have also started to put out emails which is slightly different, because initially when I was starting to apply, I used to write huge paragraphs of what I can do and this is that, because I have so many things to say and all. But recently, if you check, if you have checked my emails, it's just a poster of, you know, hi everyone, this is what I can do, and I like, you know, like I tried a different approach this time, and I think that also works. The email, whatever you're writing, that I think even the resume or the email which you're sending is also which can also show your design sense or what you're thinking, like, you know, to tell your hiring person. So a lot of and also right now I'm also working on my own website. I think that if no one is gonna hire me right now in a UX project, I will do my own UX, making my own website. So I'm right now in the process of, and it's interesting for me also, thinking that how can I project myself as this person in my own website and stuff like that. So I think even that's also one approach which you can actually show your portfolio. I think if you have so many things to say, so people can actually go through your website and see. I think, I mean, is that the right way? Would that be a good choice? I'm just asking all of you.
And
Okay.
this is really cool. Can I add something here, Jonathan?
Sure, Gil.
Yeah, no, I really like the spirit, honey, because I think it's really how much you want to invest in yourself, right? So we're talking about portfolio. There's a question about use case. This is definitely a support and part of, you know, how much you want it to. It's like if you're selling yourself, how much do I have as a material, or, you know, what I can see, so that, you know, we can start the conversation. Then I know more about you. Right. So I think it's important, like you said, I want to do my own UX. Amazing. That's just really cool. Or even what Jonathan said, make it until you know, fake it until you make it, right? Or if you don't have a portfolio, for example, or you haven't done something, you know, you can go and get a mock-up, get a visual design, try to explore. You will understand, you'll see how it looks and how it goes, right? And eventually you of course gonna learn from that. It's just really practicing, right? So that's my, you know, my take on if you don't have it, just like, yeah, fake until make it. Why not? Because you eventually you'll know, and you learn by trying. So yeah, really cool. Really nice to hear that from you.
I just want to pass over to Greta, one of the co-organizers. I'm just going to ask you to unmute Greta. She's got a question. Just the one question, Greta, sorry. And then there is one question that's a great segue to the next topic, so I'll cover that. Over to you, Greta.
Yeah, well, it's actually a question from the chat that I want to kind of fuse with something that I'm also observing in the industry. So the question is there an internship culture for fresh UX/UI design graduates? And where I want to kind of fuse this with my own observation is that we don't actually see a lot of junior roles, if I'm honest. Like, and Lena also touched on this, you know, when we had to like build Kareem, you start from like hiring quite senior,
Yeah.
and you know, it's all good and well to say like, yeah, build a portfolio with a kind of a fake app, or you know, just writing a case study. But is there something we can do to kind of foster this culture of organic growth or learning on the job? Because it's quite tough in Dubai, especially the situation, right? You need a visa to be in the country to work, so it's not like you can just sit in an office. So yeah, I guess the question is, what is there for, you know, internship opportunities or for juniors to really get their foot in there?
Great question. Lena looks like she wants to take that first.
Yeah, I
also
want to.
but Lena, you go
Yeah.
first.
It's very close to my heart at the moment, so hence I have quite a lot to give for this. So yes, Greta, right. At the point when we were at Kareem, we were already in growth company. Come on, we got acquired like a year ago. So that was that. But when Kareem even started, they actually hired very unexperienced, like less experienced people. And it was mainly because design wasn't so known. But now I think there is startups, especially some of the universities here, they are starting to tie their students into organizations. They are doing student projects. So the students are starting to get more and more closer to the reality. And my own experience, which I can share now, is that I'm actually working on a personal kind of project, tech project now. It's still, I wouldn't call it a startup yet because it's too early stage to even call that. There is a small team, but I have hired actually 2 interns for this project already. They don't unfortunately happen to be in MENA. They are outside of MENA, but it just happened that I found them outside. But I also work with 2 students who are actually on paid jobs with me. And they are kind of freelancing and stuff like that. So I think there is probably people, like very early stage people who are still looking to kind of very young and fresh brains to stimulate thinking differently and all that. For example, what I'm building, because it's so early stage. So I would say that there is opportunities for that, but are the companies very organized in internships? I know that we were at Kareem and we were at Kafu. So we had internships, not in our design team. There was no any obstacle to that. We could have had it, but we just didn't have a need at that moment. But we had in other departments, and same way we could have had it in design team. So what I mean is that if someone wants to have an internship with a company, they should proactively go and ask for that, because it's actually quite a small step for company to do it, in my opinion. But I might be wrong. There is other people in different businesses, larger businesses, than I've been involved. But I think there is some of that. Of course, may not be big trend, but definitely there could be opportunities, my opinion.
Yeah, great. Jill, before I want to hear your view on it, but before we do, I just wanted to share a little story that I'm quite proud of. Something it's kind of answering your question. I do think overall, from what I've seen, Greta, that there aren't as many internships or opportunities in the region or in Dubai compared to maybe more mature markets, where I think it's not necessarily the maturity of design, it's just the maturity of organizations. So where you have more mature organizations with more established business practices, regardless of their size, you have just a market that understands and, you know, brings in not just designers that don't necessarily that are maybe have less experience, but also interns from universities. I have worked with NYU Abu Dhabi, for example, where I used to work, and I have not just mentored but helped to connect. I mean, Gil can attest to that. I've connected him to a few people, and I don't know if I've connected anyone to you, Jessica, but I certainly will in the future. There are aspiring designers, but one thing that I am proud of, he's on the call. We have, I'm not going to name him so he doesn't get embarrassed, but we have a designer in the team who was just doing Facebook ads for the marketing team. He's a visual designer from a market that's not as established in design. And after working with him, shortly after I joined for a hackathon, I was looking at his screen as I walked around, going like, oh my God, you're a designer. We need more designers. I didn't know that we had other designers. And I just made a case, convinced his manager, and moved him across to the product design team. And over the last, whatever, year and a half, he's been learning through mentorship from other designers, including myself, what it takes to be an all-rounder designer who does a bit of research, does a bit of interaction, participates in design critiques, not just visual design. And he's come an incredible way. And what it takes, my advice is, I think as Nina was saying, it takes the right attitude and mindset and the will. So if you are open to that, I think say that you're open to being an intern, even if it's X hours per week or whatever that might be.
Yes.
But if you're trying, I agree, if we have limited funds, limited resources, and the companies we're in only allow us to have maybe 1 or 2 designers, if we have to hold someone's hand as a hiring manager, it becomes challenging depending on the size of the design team. So I definitely think there's room for that, but it requires maybe larger design teams, which don't really exist. So perhaps, I don't know, that's why we don't see them. Gil, what do you think?
Oh, I agree, Jonathan, but that is because you built the ecosystem and it was very welcome. It sounds like that to me, right? Because you've got the expertise and you can really manage that out through but the organizations that I've been working on, majority were very ops oriented and a lot of work, more work than than strategy and planning at some point. So if the ecosystem is not ready to accept that, and if you're just one-man show trying to push that, it's quite complicated. But I mean, there's a lot of opportunities, and if I could, definitely it's something that I would onboard it. But we are at the moment just really following sort of a process or like an agenda. Yeah, because we do have majority of them, I think, if not all, are for UAE nationals. So there is a program within FAB for the fresh graduates and nationals. So yeah, I mean, there are programs, we follow agenda, but we could do even more, even for, switching roles, as in the case that you just mentioned. It's incredible even to sort of stretch the team without hiring new talents, right? Of course, looking at budgets and stuff like that. But yeah, we unfortunately not having such flexibility within the organization. And I think it probably has to come from top management, HR. Of course, you can really start engaging in a not, how do I say, official, but if it's in a large organization, at some point you really have to make it official. But this is, this is the experience that I have now. We've got amazing fresh graduates. Like there is one girl working on our marketing team, and she is like a superstar, amazing. In the past year, she did an amazing job and, turned things upside down, and it was really good. It really adds to the team.
Great. I'm just gonna, it's a great topic. We can definitely keep talking about it, perhaps in the chat or offline. But I just want to segue to another subject. We had a question from Manoj who said, which is a great segue, it was the next section. So you must have a crystal ball there or something, Manoj. Would you hire someone just based on their portfolio? Or would you prefer the candidate does a case study as part of the interview process? And it's something that I and the team have been grappling and doing a lot of research with in terms of the design challenge. So I want to ask initially, well, we haven't heard from Jessica. So it'd be interesting to hear, Jessica, from from a high level, looking at all your clients and the region. Is that something that you see is quite common within the UAE? And I know you hire as well for Saudi and other countries in the MENA region, a design challenge. And what are your thoughts from both the client and the candidate's perspective before we hear from the actual candidates and clients?
Before somebody disagrees with me.
Yeah, but it's healthy. We want this limit, right? That's a healthy debate. We don't want to.
Design challenges are very, very common. I think, and I think that they can be good and bad. So one main pro of a design challenge for a hiring manager is to see if a candidate is interested in the role. You know, it takes an hour to have an interview, another hour to have a second interview, but to actually complete a design challenge takes a lot of time and a lot of dedication, right? So I think they're good, that they are good in that way. I do have a lot of clients that will hire just based on a portfolio, but then again, you know, it depends what you put in a portfolio. If a candidate has an absolute superstar portfolio with that evidences work that is very relevant to what a hiring manager is looking for, then amazing, you know that they're capable of doing something. But, and it is unfortunate to say, I do sometimes look at people's portfolios and think, you know, you need to evidence that you've done this work. If somebody evidences something in their portfolio and they've not got any kind of case study behind it, or, you know, the thought process that went behind something, you know, without the original sketches of what they were thinking, how can you kind of prove that that's that candidate's work? So in that way, I do think that, you know, a design task is a good thing. But I do also find that some senior candidates can be slightly offended at being asked to complete a design challenge, which is sad, you know, because it's a normal part of a hiring process. But yeah, so there are pros and cons. I think that, you know, if you know on initial interview that a candidate is good enough to do the job and they've evidenced in their portfolio that they know what goes into doing that job, then, you know, why should they have to do a design task? Why should they have to, you know, take time out of their own personal time to complete a design task? But then I also do understand that, you know, you can't tell somebody's design skills just from an hour's conversation with them necessarily. So, you know, I don't agree nor disagree that they're necessarily a necessary part of a design task, but yeah, I've kind of not really agreed nor disagreed there, have I? But
I like it.
They're very common is my answer.
No, because we do use a design challenge at Property Finder. I've done a lot of research on it, and there's a lot of debate about why it shouldn't be done. I think see both sides, and I think one of the challenge, unlike maybe some of Gil, your organization, or Lena, some of the ones it sounds like some of the ones you worked for, is when you have a very small HR team with little or no support, then closer to the no support part, it's okay, they're not on the line, they probably won't watch the video. Then you have to do it all yourself. It's very hard when you have a full-time job. You've got to go through, and like Lena and Gil, I'm very precious about if someone spent the effort to apply, then I want to spend the effort in replying to them. So I will go through every single candidate, which I know sounds crazy, but and that could be right. That could be whatever, 400 or 500 by the time I'd maybe close things up, and the rest would just then get, obviously once you've selected someone, you'd get the, you know, a nice little rejection, but at least you hear something. I don't think it's fair to hear nothing. But my point is, after doing all that, from a hiring manager's perspective, and I want to hear Honey, your point of view before we go to the hiring managers, but from my perspective, this levels the playing field. It also minimizes the process. If we don't have the time to have lots of interviews with lots of different people to get perspectives, then after maybe, you know, like a screener and going through portfolios and CVs, if we give the exact same design challenge and we make it clear that it's not about the hours of effort and we ask people not to spend too long, it's more about understanding how people think and how, you know, how they would work with us. Because the next stage is then a critique by not all of the design teams, but the senior designers, maybe a product manager, and myself, but I totally see the opposite side. And we've also done a Google style for product managers, Google style, which is you get someone in the building for like 4 hours, which is also insane, but you don't do a design challenge. You'll get or a product management challenge. You get them in the building for maybe 4 hours. They have individual interviews with a whole bunch of different people. You make a decision, yes or no, on passing, say, the next stage, or it's got its own, I think, pros and cons. Honey, what are your thoughts before we go to the hiring managers?
Actually, I would like to share one experience, one design challenge which I liked the most, not here, back in India, actually. That was one of my first interviews which I got into, and I got the job also. Actually, would that be okay if I share a design challenge? Is that good?
Sure.
So basically, they had previously gone through a lot of profiles, and we had a telephone interview prior to this. And like they called me after that interview. Probably they liked me, so they called me for the design challenge. And it was pre-informed that you might have to spend a whole day there for the design challenge. So once I went there, we had a discussion initially about like a initial interview, and then we had a challenge. He told me, he gave me like around a half an hour, just half an hour. They just gave me a problem, and you can think over it. What are your perspectives? And then probably if you can give me a solution to it. So basically, after that challenge, the half an hour, we had a talk. We had a good a discussion on like what was the problem and what are my suggestions and my brainstorming process and everything. Uh, and there was several other challenges as well in that day, but at the end of the day it was good that we had a good discussion on the whole challenges which I took part in, and where are my pros and cons and everything. And once I so I feel that in such a way that is a good direction. I mean, it's a good advantage for the the candidate as well. If we get good if we get a good feedback from the the hiring people. There have been design challenges where I have taken part. There are so many ways where they initially give us a design challenge. When we apply for the job, they give us a design challenge, and then they will let us know if we are called for the interview or not. So we do the design challenge so nicely after spending 1 or 2 days, and sometimes they give us a timeline 2 days timeline. So the 2 days we are actually working on to that, and we send it, and then we never get the response, no response. So I have I have been a little bit more pestering. I have been asking them it's okay if we don't get into the get the interview, or if we don't get into the company, nothing like that, but at least give me a feedback on how my challenge went, because the feedback really matters. That is how it helps. Like even my first interview with Jonathan, you gave me a lot of feedback on how where all I can improve, and how I spoke and everything like that. So the feedback does really matter, and there are so many people, unfortunately, who doesn't even care about giving a proper feedback also. So challenges and long challenges, I feel that even in discussions, like Jessica pointed out, in just one challenge you won't be able to understand the whole how the whole person would be or anything like that. But still, I think yeah, you can a whole day of probably there can be interesting challenges, like where there's a discussion. If it is a UX project, probably UX position, there can be discussions based on some problems and stuff like that. So probably you will understand how this person thinks. In the first example which I gave you, in there he did try to intentionally be against my opinions, to see if I would start fighting or something like that. But we had a good discussion, and he said that as a feedback also, I wanted to see if you would just be strong on your opinion or something like that. So even if you don't get hired, or even if you don't go to the next step, it's always good to get that feedback. And even for the next small portfolio also, we can add that also, maybe as the next small work, we can put that also. And one thing is that I have gone to one design challenge. It was just 1 hour, and I was asked to make an idea for a website layout. and they said that what all they would be checking would be the photo editing skill, the user experience, their research, and they gave me a huge list of what all things they would be looking at it. So, and it was just 1 hour. I have to be in the office. So I feel that even the design challenges should be a little bit more thoughtful when it comes to like, giving that also. So that is my perspective on it.
Okay. And Lena, what are your thoughts on a design challenge?
Yes, so absolutely, that's how the world has been pretty much working in my world always. And not only for product designer, rightly, even for user researchers, design researchers, and different types of service designers. So, but in my opinion, the most important thing about it is to see the person, especially in the physical times before COVID. It was very important to see and kind of feel this person in your office, not only you or your immediate team members, but also stakeholders who were invited to those presentations. And absolutely, you would be able to same time look at how they think strategically, analytically, problem solving, how they even get on with people in a tricky situation, and also you can test a sense of humor, whatever it might be, but you get like a human touch. You can do to a certain extent, I think, in Zoom or Google Meets nowadays, but I think that was one of the key. But just another topic which you kind of passed there was about how like important is all these portfolios and things. And I think the world is so competitive. So you need to think as a applicant that if the world is so competitive, not only in MENA, but globally, what do I need to do to be on the top? And I think online presence, as much possible online presence, your LinkedIn profile has to be perfectly thought through. Presented so well that if the hiring manager accidentally arrives to your LinkedIn page, they already say, oh my God, I want to talk to this person. So there is like various things, and of course your website. And but really on the I agree with Hani, definitely hiring managers should give feedback, proper detailed feedback to the people who has come to your office, spent 3-4 hours there, presented, being questioned. So at least in my culture, always given feedback to people, those people who has come to all the way there, either rejected or not, or whatever the final verdict might have been. But it's definitely, I think it's just a human act and best practice, and just being fair to the candidates to give feedback. I understand if you interview too many people, it becomes impossible, but then don't interview too many people, shortlist people, So yes, that's what I would say for that.
Agreed. You, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I love that. I love what Lena said. She nailed it. It's about the again, that human touch that's very important. And you can express that on the paper. We've spoken about it. One thing I wasn't really expected, Jonathan, is that you have design challenges. Yeah. So Jessica says there are pros and cons. I was like, there are cons and cons. No, I'm joking. Now the reality is, I feel that senior fellows might get a little bit, are not comfortable doing that. I recall once I had someone call me up from Kuwait and say, hey, we want to build a digital wallet, very cool, but we have a design challenge. I was like, okay, I'm not very into it, but if you want to just send it over on an email. And the design challenge was actually to design a digital wallet. So it was like, okay, I'm not into it.
No, yeah, that's no. Yeah.
So that's that was the design challenge. But I had those two. Back in Etisalat was amazing. No design challenges, but I think for designers, you have your portfolio, and that design, the project, that's just not the joke. It's not that the hiring manager will look at it and is like, oh, I got it. No, you have to explain it. And which part of the process were you there? Maybe the visual design, but you were not the visual designer of that particular product or a project that you put out there. So you can get a lot of feedback. You know, if you really need the design challenge, like if I do, I usually don't. You know, all the process that I went through for hiring a designer, I never used a design challenge, but it was always like, yes, something is needed. Yeah. If you don't have a portfolio and you are very good at, you know, talking and selling yourself, then I have a sales position for you. Yeah. So you have to have some material to showcase what you have done. Right. But, you know, the just previously we hired a fellow that is very good on marketing, and as you just said, Jonathan, and he actually now do a very good visual design, like UI design. You know, because of an attitude, because of that motto, the you know, the willing to make things happen. I wouldn't hire him because he didn't have a very good visual design, you know, UI on his portfolio. You know, so, you know, imagine I would lose a really good fellow, you know, that we work together today because of that.
Yeah, it's a great point, and you reminded me, Gilles. I think it's a very good tip as well. Some of the best interviewees like that I've seen steer the conversation towards their portfolio. So that would be another bit of advice: is even if you're not asked to show your portfolio, you might have just one shot. So in that first interview, if it's in person, bring a laptop, be ready. If it's not, then have your best example ready and say, do you mind if I talk you through a great project?
Yeah.
Even if it's not on the
Yes.
agenda. I think there was an amazing candidate. Unfortunately, she was too good. She was in Silicon Valley looking to, you know, relocate. And she was looking for a very senior role, one that we didn't have, but I was super impressed with how she basically conducted the interview. There were a few of us, it wasn't just myself, but it was her show. And she did an amazing job, not in an arrogant way or in a, you know, very direct way, in a very casual way, but being able to steer the conversation towards, I've got, you know, a great example of how I did that. Can I show it to you? Or whatever, even if it's, like I said, it's not on the agenda.
Yeah.
Lena, any thoughts there? I see you nodding, sorry. And
No, I'm nodding only because yes, completely agreed. It's like, I think it shows mature thinking from that person to have more like a dialogue. So I think it's hard sometimes for less experienced, let's say, designers people naturally get nervous. It's not the most natural moment to feel like I'm going to have a casual dialogue. Yeah. But I think it could become more relaxed if you are actually not in same physical place, maybe on a Zoom or Google Meets is more casual, that you as a candidate, you can kind of plan it, that imagine how the conversation could go if you take control of it. Not, of course, you know, it doesn't always need to be question, answer, but I think even less experienced candidates can start thinking, how I imagine this conversation to go. Put it on your wall and practice that conversation kind of thing with yourselves. And I think people all the way to chief executive officers do this same trick kind of thing. So it's like anticipating what's going to happen, what are they going to ask, what are the key questions, and where I can put my own things in, when I can pull this ace from my sleeve and say this or that. Like already think about those, where I drop some numbers. I increased by changing this design of that. I increased the sale by X%, or the retention increased this, and it had direct impact. So you can push them in there. So yeah, that's just a thought. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great thought. Great point on thinking and planning and doing that journey map of the conversation. There's quite a lot of some great questions. Let's have a little bit of Greta time. Over to you, Greta.
So it's really interesting, awesome answers so far. I think if we take a step just a little bit broader, so I think we also know, and maybe Jessica can actually speak to this, candidates, there's a new way of looking for a job, right? It's not just like you're sending your CV out to 30,000 companies and see what sticks, right? Candidates come in very with an intention, like they feel that they relate to a company or they want to work at a particular company because they might feel like they will fit in there. So the question is, so we've talked a lot about portfolio and technical skill and the design challenge, but what about the other thing that comes up in interviews, which is the company values? So when do you kind of start to chat about that? How much should the candidate know? And at what point do you realize, you know, if they are a really strong technical candidate or design candidate, but they don't maybe tick all the core values for the company, what happens? Do you still kind of push them through the funnels and get other people's opinion, or talk a little bit about to the values?
I like that. If I can answer that, Greta, for me, specifically now on the bank, it is very important that those values, we have to tick those values, right? But I think as a hiring manager, you have to be as transparent as possible to really tell to whoever is coming in wants to work on the organization, to say, this is how the organization works. There is a heritage, there is a legacy, and this is the values, and this is how things are working here. And this is what we have to do to make it transparent and to understand on the other side, like, you know, is it something that really resonates with you? Because if it doesn't, I think if it's me, I would say no, because I don't want to get someone frustrated down the line within half a year or, you know, even a year. And it says, you know what, that doesn't work for me. I want it to be more, you know, maybe agile, or, you know, I want to have more flexibility. And there are some strict processes that I'm not comfortable with. So, you know, things of, you know, really that sets a bit of value. So yeah, I wouldn't go ahead.
Okay.
No.
Jessica, does it even start as early as the recruitment?
It does, yes. I mean, every interviewer loves the age-old question, why do you want to work here? I mean, it's such an old question to use, right? But it's oldie but goodie. And I think, yeah, I will assess a candidate on culture fit, whether, you know, they fit in with that business, or when I'm speaking to them. I think when I initially brief a role from a hiring manager, the reason that a hiring manager would come to me in the first place is because, you know, time is the big one. They don't have time, they don't have, you know, they've got a day job to do, right? And so, yeah, it's something that I will definitely assess. And, you know, if somebody is not a right fit culturally, then it's I would reject somebody initially. Yeah, not often, I don't think. I think, you know, everybody deserves the right to be able to speak directly with a hiring manager, even after me, even after I've assessed somebody. But there are a lot of fast-paced startups over here in Dubai, as everybody knows, and culture fit is a big one. Everyone's looking for somebody that, you know, will gel with the team as well as be good at the job, because a happy worker is a great worker, right? If someone's happy in their role, they're going to work so much harder. So yeah, I think it's early stages, a good fit for both the candidate and the hiring manager is very, very important, as well as technical skills.
So while we have you, Jessica, based on the first, so we had a question here from the chat, asking, so there are chances of getting hired, potentially getting hired with some portfolio work, but can you get hired without the minimum work experience usually specified on a job interview or in a job description? Because that's also, it's often something that is a bit of a like, oh shit, I haven't worked for 5 years, you know, or whatever. You think?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Short answer. You know, if you go into an interview confident and you wow that hiring manager, a lot of hiring managers are very open to taking a chance. I'm sure that you know, Gil, Lena, and Jonathan can all agree. If somebody is, you know, confident enough in what they know already to be able to grow into a role, then, you know, walk into an interview with confidence, I think is a very good tip for any candidate. Do your research, of course, on that company and that hiring manager. One thing I will always do, I'm kind of going on a bit of a tangent here, but one thing I will always do with candidates is I will send them the hiring manager and the interviewer, if they're different people, I'll send the candidate their LinkedIn profile 100% before every interview you ever go into. View that LinkedIn profile and know who you're talking to, know what their background is, and know what's going on in the business. Read up on any articles. Google News is a great platform to read up on businesses, especially out here with everyone wanting to brag about how amazing is that the UAE is. But yeah, even if you don't qualify for 10 responsibilities that are on that job description, if you hit 7 or 8 of them solidly, I would quite happily put somebody's profile in front of a hiring manager and say, take a chance on this person because of this and reason. And a lot of it boils down to confidence and being able to say to either me or a hiring manager, this is why I'm good for this role, or this is why I'll go into this role and I'll learn what I need to do. But yeah, I think we get a lot of candidates apply for roles that don't quite fit. But I think if you have a good enough explanation as to why you would be a fit in future, 100%, I'd happily put a candidate's profile in front of a hiring manager for that reason.
Yeah, and then maybe this is my opinion, but while we're here, maybe we could also kill that myth, because I also saw in the chat there was a question around job descriptions, and it often asks for web development language knowledge of coding or whatever. What are your thoughts on that? Is that a requirement? If they need it, if they don't need it?
I think it's company dependent. I'm not a designer myself, but I know that a good designer will have knowledge of code. I think a good designer won't be able to code because you're then a hybrid, and then you're spreading your skill set across too many different. On the whole, anyway, if you have a passion for something, then albeit. But I think on the whole, if you're a UX designer, sell your profile as a UX designer. If you're a UX researcher, sell on your portfolio that you're a researcher. I do speak to a lot of people that will say, I'm a hybrid, I do a bit of this and a bit of that. And I think to a hiring manager that will spend a few seconds looking at a CV, if you do too many things, it means you're not quite a specialist in one field, which if a hiring manager is looking for a senior UX researcher, selling yourself that you can do this and do that and do the other, you might not be good at one particular thing. So I think I've gone off on a bit of a tangent again, haven't I? But on the whole, I can't even remember what the original question was. I've gone off on that much of a tangent, haven't I? But yeah.
It's about the coding skills. I don't know if Lena or Gil.
Okay, I would like to add one thing. Just try to be quick. I would just say for the candidate, if you spread yourself and you say I'm hybrid, I do web development, or I do iOS and this, what will happen? Now you didn't select your expertise. You might arrive to the organization, which is still quite small, and you end up actually doing web development or something else, which you didn't actually originally plan. But you just thought you're going to impress someone. And I know a real person and case where in my team, there was this type of thing. And it wasn't very nice anymore after a while, because the person really wanted to design, but all the possible marketing jobs for changing this and that, tweaking on websites would land on this person's desk. And for that reason, I think what Jessica is saying, check which battle you want to go for, select your focus and fight for that. Even you are a little bit short on one or the other, just fight for it and make it look like that, or gain the experience, and then say, I'm not anymore developer. I do my own spare time interest development projects, but doesn't need to be business anymore. So that's the only thing. I know that from real, and the person wasn't happy anymore then. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I would add something here, I would say, this is the situation of the duck, right? So duck can swim, but not like a fish. It can fly, but not like a bird. So it can be a duck if you like, no problem. But yeah, well, I'm a sort of a dinosaur on tech. So and when I started, there was something called webmaster. So you would do everything, the master, right? So you would do code, you do whatever is needed to put that website up. But yeah, the things have really segregated, right? So UX has been like thousands of divisions, and I think, yes, be yourself first. Obviously, do what you like. If you like to code, if you like to experiment, do the code. Nothing tells you no. The more you learn, the more you know, because at some point as a designer you do a bit of squares and shapes out there, and I feel like, oh, these developers, they don't know how to do it. That was so easy. But when you really actually look at this, yeah, things start to be a little different. So yeah, if you can explore, do. But as a hiring manager, what are you hiring for? Be very clear. If you need a visual designer, if you like to code or you do it, yes, it's a plus. But you have to be specific, yeah, at some point.
Yeah.
I would like to add a little bit on to that, because even I have seen that when there's a job posting, they post it's very funny to see that it's like UI UX graphic designer plus programming skills, like the
10 years experience.
yeah. So I'm like, okay, like graphic design. So and I have honestly, I have gone to an interview where the description was, and it's funny actually. I think even some descriptions are like copied. Like, I'm not trying to like offend anyone, but some of the descriptions it was always like copied from somewhere else. And when you go for the job interview, they might give you a design challenge. I have gone to an office where they gave me a challenge to design a logo. Then they were sitting there and discussing about like, put it that, put this, and I mean, even that is actually a waste of our also the candidates' time also. So, and asking like the programming skills should be like good. So we are confused whether whom are you asking for, whether it is for a web developer or a graphic designer or a UX designer. I'm pretty confused. I mean, it's like a little bit. I just my perspective.
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity for more thoughtful job descriptions. Definitely. I know I've written job descriptions myself, and yes, I have copied and pasted from other job descriptions.
I mean, copy and pasting is totally fine, but I mean, not everything. I mean, including CSS, HTML, and extract, etc. Then graphic designing, Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, etc. Just saying from a candidate's perspective.
Yeah.
Greta, are there any other kind of last questions? I do want to also open to the panel to if there's anything that wasn't asked that they want to share as well, just conscious of time. Any other final questions, Greta?
Not really. I think we covered a lot of it.
Okay, great. So huge thank you. I just want to maybe do a round. And also, I know Nada has been probably itching to say something as well. If you had anything else you wanted to ask or to share, Nada, as well, feel free. Before we maybe go around, I'm very interested in your view, both as a hiring manager and as a candidate. You've been in this region probably longer than most of us on this topic.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. You're right. I was actually itching to say something. From my perspective, I have been in this region from a freelancer sort of perspective as well. So part of what really pushes me when I go out there and I talk about UX is the passion behind UX. Whereas UX or UI designers, but mostly, right now, if we're talking from a human-centered design perspective, we have been working in an industry where for the longest time, we've needed to prove the worth of UX. So when you get into these conversations and you go into these different organizations, sometimes we're really trying to sell what we do and really try to show the value back to an organization. And I think this is a skill that a lot of UX designers also need to make sure they bring up in their interviews, because you are still going to enter an organization where even if an organization values you and decides, yes, we do need to bring this person into it, you're still going to be working with different business units and showcasing your value, bringing in UX design into everything that we sort of do, putting the user at the center of everything that we do. And that's going to touch upon different areas of the organization. So it's really important, I think, as a skill for anyone out there right now that's trying to really sell themselves, is to also be sure that they can also sell the work that we do and see the value behind UX and bring that intent into these interviews as well. From a freelancer perspective or as a consultant perspective, I've always sort of been put into those positions when I used to speak to clients and try to ensure that I'm selling my services and selling my value to an organization. And I think that's something that's always worked very positively for me, to the point where right now I was able to sell my sort of services and now move into a more sort of head of product position at the company that I'm currently working with. And so I think that's just something that I would put out there to any candidates that are looking, is that's something that's really important. On the other side, from a hiring manager position, I think that we also have a duty of care that when we are creating these job descriptions, and we hear it a lot, is to be very specific of what we're also looking for so that we can get the right candidates to come out. There are a lot of people out there right now looking for these for positions. And I think, you know, if we're going to be very broad with having everything and putting everything out there, because it would just be, you know, sort of like hitting, you know, two birds with one stone, it's not, you know, giving justice to the type of people who are looking for these right positions. And if you're not, you won't get that value back. You'll just get everyone applying and having to sift through hundreds of, you know, positions. So something that also I think from a hiring manager's perspective, we need to keep in mind, because personally, I tried to hire a UI designer earlier this year and I had to just stop because although I was very specific in my job description that I put out there, the type of responses that I got was just everyone and anyone that has anything to do with design. And I don't think they even read the job description. We also have this thing on LinkedIn where you can just apply without even really reading and just hoping that you might get a reply back. And I think that that's not going to work anymore. I'm sure, Jessica, you deal with that a lot as well when you're out there trying to hire. So that's kind of my 2 cents that I'd like to put up there. But most importantly, just the last message, just do it with intent, because, you know, UX design is, there's so much, everyone's starting to feel the value of it, and we need to know how to speak that language too and bring it to the table.
Great points. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any final thoughts very quickly, Jessica?
I very much agree with what Nada just said. And I find myself a lot of the time consulting with businesses, especially, you know, there are a lot of startups over here, right? And I find myself speaking to a lot of CEOs, even, you know, business runners, and having to basically educate them on what you guys do. And how important you are to a business. So, you know, everybody knows that a technology business needs a developer to code, to build it. But I think it is very, very important that you guys know your worth and can sell what you do, because it's not as, you know, widely known. Especially over here in terms of like over in the EU, it's, and in America especially, it's very, very common, you know, what you guys do. But I think over here, to sell your worth is very, very important. And it's something that I also do for you. Yeah, very good point.
Great. Gil, final thought or any message or anything?
Yes, right. Now, really to thanks to the community, to Human Centered Design for, you know, putting this together. I think it's really important for us to, you know, share what can be done, you know, hear from the other side, like now, you know, how much we learned that there are some hiring processes that are not very good, you know, feedback and stuff. So, you know, things that we can learn from each other and then try to, you know, get them better, get support. And so the very good thoughts that I could get and learn from the other fellows over here. So really thank you so much for the opportunity and for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Lena, any final thoughts?
Yeah, same here. Thank you so much. Really good to having been involved in tonight and share some thoughts. And just a quick tips for the applicants is design skill is one thing, but I think companies are more and more looking for people who can think holistically, think more strategically, be true partners for the business, for the product management, for the CEO. Think through their lens, try to see how the world looks like from their side, and of course be always very customer centric. So just analytical thinking, and always, where do I fit in? What value can I bring to this organization? And I think the one tip someone told me a long time ago was, when you're hunting for a job, shortlist the companies you must work for, who you want to work for. Make that list. Is it 5 people, 10 people, whatever, 10 companies? And then you go full steam on those and you say, I will be in 3 months working with one of those companies. I think that's it. Don't go left, right, and center everywhere. Focus, focus, focus.
That's a great tip. Thank you so much. And the most important person for tonight, the candidate, that's the one we anchor to in all of our journeys. Honey, any final thoughts?
I'm like really humbled to have been invited to this panel, first of all. And I'm so thankful to all of you. I like great, amazing insights. And like I just minimized my the window, and I saw a lot of connection requests right now also. So I'm really happy. And I mean, I got a lot of good tips and different perspectives. This is something I think, as a lot of new candidates, people would like to know what exactly goes through the minds from a hiring manager or recruiter perspective. And we got to see all of this. I think this would be a great discussion which can be put out for all the people, especially the ones who are looking for jobs in UAE, because in other countries the opportunities and the hiring process are different. So especially there's lots of questions, what exactly happens in the hiring process in UAE, how can we get into? And I think there has been a lot of inputs. Thank you, Jonathan, first of all, for inviting me. Gil, Jessica, we had a discussion prior also. Thank you for calling me in the evening. And Lena, for like amazing insights. I hope I get a job.
Yes, you will. And yeah,
For
you
sure.
will.
Yeah.
That's been the secret agenda of the whole panel tonight.
Thank you.
Huge thank you to all of our panelists. It's been a really great year. On behalf of a huge thank you to Nada Katral for all of your support and your work. A lot of it is unseen, what Nada does, as well as Greta and Assad as well. I don't know if you saw this, Nada, but you're finally on over here up on the screen. So we've got the team there. Yeah, just wanted to thank you, and just want to wish everyone a happy holidays, those that are celebrating, regardless of what your holiday might be. It's been a tough year, I think, for all of us, definitely a transition, and really looking forward to seeing all of you in 2021. We're going to have a break next month, but we'll be back in late January. So thank you so much again to all of our panelists, our co-organizers, and everyone for joining us. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thanks.
Thank you. And thank you, Jonathan, as well.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye.